And we're here with Dan Clark, who's the CEO of Brainfm. Do you call it Brainfm or Brain.fm?
Brain.fm.
Awesome. Welcome to the Optimal Performance Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So for me, this is really exciting because I'm a nerd in performance and how the brain works, and for me, in the world of biohacking, this is some of the most accessible and effective sort of tech you can use. You can track in an Oura ring and do all this stuff, but what works, and can you notice that it's working? So I'm really excited to jump into this conversation with you. I guess one great place to start is to hear how it is that you got involved with this sort of technology. Like, how did you get into this?
Yeah, great question. So I've always been interested in technology and growing businesses with it. And for a while, I'm kind of classic, drop out of high school, build a business, sell it, keep doing that over and over again. And I was doing that for a while. And then eventually I hit this point where I realized I wasn't hitting one of my core values of helping people. And I kind of was just optimizing for money. I ended up quitting my digital director job. I had an advertising agency and was just trying to figure out what to do. And I actually tried Brainfm when it launched. So I'm not a founder. But I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And I've dabbled in biohacking, which I have to be very careful of saying on the show. But, I've done the nootropics, I've done all the different things. And this is one of the first applications, and the first time I was like, whoa, what is this? And I was so interested in it that I ended up working for free, started building out the tech team, and then, skipped forward a few years, ended up becoming CEO. So it's been a wild ride.
That's cool. You were so into it that you decided, you know what, I just want to go be involved. And then here you are.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So I think let's start with a really high level view of what this is. And before we dive into the technical aspects, what's happening in the brain, why it works, how you create it, all these cool things, like, could you just give everybody a very high level understanding of what Brain.fm actually is?
Yeah, sure. So we basically make functional music designed to help you switch into mental states and then stay there as you're listening to the music.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. You could tweet. Let's tweet that. Let's mark that. Tweet. They're tweetable. So I think one place that I sort of came from, and I think a lot of people will, is, we know that when we listen to music, noise, sounds, put us in different states of consciousness. And so many people are working from home, and they've really had to sort of totally change the way that they approach the work that they do. And so I think a lot of people will have some sort of reference for, when I, work out, I like to listen to this. When I'm working at the computer, I like to listen to this. And one question that I have is how similar or dissimilar is Brain.fm from like binaural beats?
Yeah, great question. So I guess you let's unpack a few things that you started bringing up. So I guess maybe even a high level, maybe this you're really asking me before, is the way this works in opposed to regular music, is that you have different kinds of patterns and different modes of thinking, right? So we're doing podcasts right now. We have a certain neural pattern if you were to look at it under EEG or the blood flow in your brain. And when you listen to certain types of music, what's happening is sometimes those trigger those patterns in our brains, right? That's why we feel good when we're listening to music, or why we want to dance and like things like that. And it's not necessarily patterns that make you want to dance. It's more of like you're getting into the happy place, your emotions. A lot of times our emotions, they really lead, a lot of things, right? And what Brainfm is we've been able to use science to start looking at patterns, EEGs and fMRIs, and basically create patterns through rhythmic pulses in music to help you switch into those mental states, right? And the way that Brainfm is different than binaural beats or isochronic tones, or the way that this is tried and been done before, is binaural beats are basically these different frequencies, so one in one ear and one in the other. And the idea is if you play them in your ears, your brain will combine them together in your brain, and it will launch into better focus or whatever you are looking for. The challenge is that your brain is really sophisticated, right? So we have neuroscientists on the team, and we know more about Pluto than some parts of our brain, right? We don't know how memories are stored or all that stuff. And the answer is basically our brains are really complicated, so we need a little bit more of a complicated solution to be able to help us elicit, focus, relax, or sleep. Binaural beats got some really great publicity when they came out because they do affect your brain when you're listening to it. But over time, that effect degrades, and then that effect isn't always good. So if your heart rate increases, that's great if you're trying to do that. But if you're just trying to measure heartbeat, you don't necessarily if it goes up or down, it matters, right? So what we're trying to do is we're really trying to create those patterns in music that not only have an effect on you, your physiology, but also are the effect you want to have and stay there. Yeah, does that make sense?
Totally does. Now, when you you say that the binaural beats sort of has a diminishing effect, do you mean like if you do it every day for 7 days, on the 8th day it's going to diminish? Or do you mean like within the experience while you're listening, it's sort of an unpredictable response?
Yeah, it's actually the latter. So on the first experience you have, it depends on the different kinds of levels or whatever. But over the first 5 minutes to 10 minutes, you're going to see depreciating returns in the first session alone. And the challenging part about distinguishing this, and one of the reasons why we rely so much on science, is because there's so many other things that are meshed together with people's experiences. So, as you know, the things that you eat can change your mood, change what kind of zone you can get into. But then there's also other psychological triggers that can interfere with their ability to recognize, focus, or relax. Because some people come to me and they're like, Dan, binaural beats have changed my life. And I don't mean to take that away from anyone, but there's other things that go on, like triggers and different kinds of effects that can happen. And what we're trying to do is be able to give life-changing, opportunities to people with music, but then also be able to show that through, fMRI, and EEGs, and really just basically scientific data to prove that. This is probably fast forwarding way too much, but we're using our same technology to help people wake up from post-op surgery, and some of our preliminary pilot studies are helping people wake up 200 to 300% faster than they normally would.
Wow.
So the effect that we're producing in the brain can be measured, it's real, and we're not only helping people focus, relax, and sleep, but there's also all this really other exciting technology that we're exploring too.
Whoa. Oh, man. And it doesn't take, a smarty pants to know that, how quickly you come back from being sedated is important to not injure your brain, because the longer that you're under, the more damage to the brain, right?
Well, I can't speak on that because I'm not an anesthesiologist, sure. and I know by working with too many doctors not to say that. But I can tell you that from a neurological level, we don't fully understand the mechanisms of anesthesia. We understand the effect it has on the brain, but the reason on why it has that effect is actually disputed. And we're probably going into a big tangent here, but it comes to the point of what you originally said, is that we really try to make sure that everything we do is science first and science led, so we can say, hey, this is a product that is going to work for you, and now just use it, enjoy it, and then we're trying to, because I'm kind of our own worst critic. and we want to make sure that we always have that data to support what we're doing.
You're hitting those high notes for me. I love it when CEOs, founders are skeptics at the same time. It's like we're not trying to do smart marketing and wrap a bunch of snake oil up and sell it to you, but you want to be guided by the science. So let's talk a little bit about the science. It's clear that you guys are in the process of proving this and have done some studies. Could walk us through what you've learned, and it's okay to get into the weeds a little bit and get into the minutia of the science a little bit as much as you'd like, because I think it's important to this. But tell us about the science.
Yeah, so there's a lot, and I only know a limited portion of it because I don't have my PhD in neuroscience. But there's a lot of really interesting things. So one, we've done a lot of different kinds of studies. We do partnerships through Northeastern University, and we also have grants from like the NSF, right, to fund this. Particularly in, can this be an effective treatment for people that score higher in ADHD, levels? And trying to figure out, okay, well, how can we, again, use music that everyone has the ability to use, and how can we, really deliver this in an effective way? And that's kind of where, all this starts. And some of the interesting things that we've really seen in science and things that blew my mind by going into this is really the level of academic veil almost, right? Where you talk to neuroscientists who are some of the smartest people I know, and they say things that are like common knowledge to them that to mere mortals like ourselves, it's like, what, and I'm saying that more jokingly, but there's a lot of really interesting things. So when you look at the way Brainfm works is using those patterns. The way it's working on a functional level in your brain is we're adding modulations to music in certain patterns. So if you listen really closely, you'll hear this slight, almost helicopter effect. And what's happening is we are going up and down in certain kinds of patterns, as we were saying. And when your brain is decoding that, taking from a vibrational wave into an electrical impulse, as that is decoded, that passes through different parts of your brain. While that's doing it, it's actually aligning your functional networks in your brain to start communicating at the same frequency. And what's happening is we're able to create patterns in your brain to allow you to really like push into a certain state. It's kind of like if you're running. So if you're running and there's a wind on your back, it feels so much easier. And that's kind of the effect that's happening inside of your brain. And then we can measure that by looking at your brain under, an fMRI and seeing consistently how your blood goes to the prefrontal cortex, which is, associated for deeper levels of focus, for example. So it's really interesting on that. One of the reasons why audio and why we choose to do audio in this way is because your hearing is very, very sophisticated. So most people would say that, your eyes are the most complicated thing on a human. You can't really, it's apple and oranges. You can't compare it. But what's really interesting is that your ears are just as sensitive in different ways as your eyes are, because if you think about it from an evolutionary level, all of our senses are just created to keep us alive and to keep us going, right? And, 30,000 years ago, the people that didn't react to certain kinds of sensitive sounds, they didn't live, right? There's a lot of really interesting things. So I'd love to hear your reaction to this. If I told you that humans could hear if when I'm pouring water, if it's cold water or hot water, what do you think?
Oh, I'm trying to think. When I really think about it, I think maybe there's a slight detection of like a viscosity or I don't know, like a thickness to the hot or cold. I don't know.
It's interesting, right? So you can picture the different water, and you can kind of have an association with that. And there's studies just like that existing because we're starting to understand the sensitivity levels that we have. And, you can do similar technology and modulations in vibroacoustics or other kinds of things. But by doing it via audio, the sensitivity level that we can do while you're already using your eyes and your other, parts of your body, is just turns into background noise. So it's like an assistant on whatever you're trying to do. And we're not competing for things that are taking your attention. So we're not strobing lights in your eyes or something like that. And there's so much more stuff that we can go on science, but it's that's some of the stuff that just really I love learning about myself.
Oh, it's fascinating. I think it's represents a really applicable and really appropriate way to increase your performance, and that's the namesake of this podcast is optimal performance. And whether you're trying to hack your sleep or trying to hack your focus or your stress levels, you guys have thought through all three of those. And so I think a lot of us, again, I try to think about the way that people use sound, use music. Some people use white noise. Most people have never heard of brown noise, that there's such a thing as brown noise. I also have been a fan in the past of listening to like movie soundtracks while I studied. I started in college listening to movie soundtracks because I don't want to hear the lyrics. I don't want to be focusing on the lyrics. I want to just hear the sound. And there's something about, a Christopher Nolan, movie score that just helps me just kind of laser in and focus in a really cool way. What I've noticed is in tinkering around with this. By the way, I love it. I love it. I'm skeptical too of things, and I get a lot of opportunities to try products and try platforms and test this and tinker around with that. And within 1 minute of listening to the first focus track, I was like, "Oh my goodness. This definitely allowed me to shift into a zone." And now I've been using it every single day. How similar? Well, no, I'm curious about the creation of the music itself. What is the process of creating? Again, to clarify for people, there's focus, relax, and sleep, and those are the three categories at which Brainfm works. How do you come up with these different soundscapes?
Yeah, so I actually want to go back to one thing you just said, and then we'll zoom into this question. So it's actually interesting you said that, because the songs that are most close to Brainfm are actually movie soundtracks.
Sure.
And the reason why is because they're built to be background noise, right? And they don't have people speaking, things like that, right? There's a lot of rules that we follow, which we can dive back into later. But there's things like no speaking. We remove salience, which is the difference between high and sharp sounds. So it's not like cymbals or anything. And it allows us to be able to control the environment. So you're not thinking about it and it just fades in the background. But as far as how we make the music, great question. So we actually believe in using the best of both worlds, where we use human creativity and we use smart AI or algorithms that allow us to control the music. So what we do is we hire video game artists and soundtrack or sound people that make soundscapes for a living. And we have a wonderful team of composers. We're actually hiring right now if anyone's interested. Nice. And what we're doing is they are using and they're creating like the idea or the wrapper for this music. So they are saying, okay, well, I want these types of musical instruments. I want this type of pace and all these different things that they build. And then what they're doing is they're assembling it in this rough order of different kinds of arrays and objects and things like that. And then we use a smart algorithm that basically knows the neural model that we're using and helps the musician to create a soundtrack. Because really what's at the core of it is all music is timing, right? Mm-hmm. And different kinds of math, right? So we have musicians that are really good at being creativity or adding creativity, and then our AI makes sure all the math works out. So you're actually getting the effect from the neural models that we've tested. And then from that output comes a piece of music that sounds good and is effective.
Wow. When did you have that first moment where, I mean, you loved this so much that you decided that you wanted to be the CEO? What tell me about your moment where you're like, holy cow, this is really something. Do you remember it?
Yeah, totally. So it wasn't the moment when I want to be CEO my first time. I never assumed that, but yeah. So it was actually the first time I used it. So give you some background on me. I used to be a night owl. So I used to work from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. because that's when I could find flow state like that, right? And I just do that all the time. I used to when I was younger, I used to go to the bars and like meet friends and then go work, and I could always find that flow is so much easier for me. And that's one of the reasons why I actually like dropped out of high school, like I mentioned before, was because my brain just never functioned in the morning. And there was, I ended up quitting my job. I was looking, like doing some soul searching and came across Brainfm. And it was like, I don't know, like 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And I like fell into it, right? And I was using it and I was just like doing stuff. And then I took my headphones off and an hour passed and I did all of this work. And I was like, whoa, what is this? And then for the next week, I tried to break it. So I like would stay up all night or wake up in the morning at 7 a.m. and try to do it. And it was after that first week, that's when I was like, this is going to change the world. And I just want to be part of the ride. And that's when I got so inspired to call the company and go on.
Wow. I'm curious about the three categories that you guys have keyed in on: focus, relax, and sleep. And I wonder about what other. It's like, okay, these are great, but what else? What else is coming? Is there like libido enhancer or pain relief, or are there other areas? You don't have to overshare, anything you're not comfortable with, but are there other areas that you guys are looking at now?
Yeah. So, great question. So by the time this comes out, we'll actually have a brand new app with brand new branding and all that stuff. So the stuff you're seeing will be a little bit outdated by then. But what we're doing is we really try to find mental states that people can associate with that they want to have. So one of the reasons why it's focus, relax, and sleep is because those are really the modalities that people usually need throughout the day. And then part of the rebranding that we're moving into is making it really easy. So inside of focus, we have creativity, deep work, and then learning, right? Inside of relaxation, we're putting in like chill, recharge, and then meditation. And then inside of sleep, it's power nap and deep sleep, right? So we're trying to make it easy for people to be able to recognize and jump into those. And we have some fun timers and different kinds of things that people have been requesting. And then outside of that, we've really done a lot of testing on some other opportunities. I've talked before about workout in the past on podcasts, and it's something that we know we can do, but we didn't realize on how difficult it would be. So what's happening is every single person is different. And when you think about it, when you're focusing, everyone is pretty much sitting still and, working on a computer or maybe painting or, whatever they're doing, writing. But there's probably the least amount of variables in there to contain that, where if you compare someone running to riding a bike to, Olympic weightlifting, right? So that's something that has been on our radar for a little bit, and we're currently in testing with a couple teams to be able to support that for performance training. I guess that's all I can say right now. So that's something I'm really excited in. And then I mentioned some of the medical applications before. So there's really interesting things because we're at this bleeding edge of neuroscience where we don't really know, and I say we as in the scientific community, but like there's some things that we're trying to figure out what is possible. So that could be pain management, or it could be maybe even like negating pain in the beginning. So one of the things that we're doing in our testing, for example, and how this all started was I was in the emergency room with my girlfriend who was there. and I wasn't getting an operation. I was freaking out,
Right.
and I realized, I was like, wow, like this must be a very uncomfortable situation for people. And I started doing research, and imagine, I don't know if you've ever had a major surgery, but if you go under the knife and you're like, it's just scary. And that happens where people are really stressed out. That stress can actually induce like cardiac arrest in some points in like older populations, right? And what we really designed is just make a patient experience better. And from that, we're like, well, I don't know why these people are waking up to 200% faster. And literally the doctor's calling us up and they're like, this is weird. We weren't, this is something we just, like, our nurses started noticing. So I think that, with focus, relax, and sleep, that's our bread and butter. We have, a lot of people using those. Those are some things we're really proud of and making better. And now that we have that, we're really exploring all of these other possibilities. But from my experience in the company, what I can tell you is that while we're exploring things, we really discover stuff because we're trying something and it's really experimental. And I think there's a lot of possibilities out there. So I don't know if I answered any of your question.
No, that was good.
but it's really exciting because we're just trying to figure out what the limit of this technology is.
Yeah, right. I'm kind of curious, just to go a little bit deeper on it. So when you're breaking out, making the distinction between like power nap and deep sleep, is that backed by a hypothesis around brain activity?
Yeah, actually it is. So the brain activity for power nap and deep sleep is different because the modalities it's created to actually be playing the whole time you're sleeping, right? Some people don't use that. I always recommend whatever works for you. So some people put it on for the whole night. Some people put it on for the first hour and then they shut it off. It's whatever is best for you in your circumstance. But the idea is that power napping, we actually thought of have you ever done, like, you have to take a nap, so you pound of caffeine and then you fall asleep and then you're like wake up and you're refreshed?
Yeah.
That's actually what we're doing in our power nap stuff. So it's kind of similar to a relax, where it's like a relaxation thing and then it enters into sleep neural pattern, and then it actually enters into like a recharge neural pattern that we have. So what's happening is you're kind of like stacking in a different way. And then the whole idea is that you wake up refreshed in 20 minutes and are ready to go after it. While sleep is, we're really trying to have really long. So if you listen even to that helicopter effect, it's kind of hard to hear. But on sleep, we have these really long waves. And that's because we're, trying to, you're not doing a crazy activity. We're trying to sync that, and you can actually hear it the most in sleep. And we're really trying to make sure that, when people have sleep, they're reaching the deepest levels they can have. And it's really fun too, with everyone having aura rings and all that stuff. Because you can actually see the difference in some circumstances.
Yeah. I'd love to hear a little bit about, tell me about the popularity. Has it caught on the way that you thought it has? Like, how long has it been around, and how many users, how much, obviously share however much you're comfortable with, but how popular is this?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's in the beginning. I look at companies like Headspace and Calm, which are mass market, and I think that they're really leading the way for companies like ourselves to really, get people interested in audio as a tool, right? And then once you're in Headspace or Calm and you're like, this is great, but I want something maybe more, or I want results consistently at the same time, they're really looking for an upgrade, and they come to us. So we're probably in the beginning of it. We've had a couple million people try us, and we have we actually don't disclose our numbers publicly.
Sure.
But we have a good subset of that number using us actively. But when I look at companies like Headspace that has 80 million people using the platform, it's something that's inspiring. And we look at, okay, how can we also be in the same kind of caliper where we're providing a service for that, switch in. And the cool thing about this is that it's not for just people that speak English, right? It's for anyone that's human. So it doesn't matter where in the world you are. So I think we're really early in the time, and I think over the next few years we're going to start accelerating with that.
Yeah, the language barrier I hadn't even thought of, but yeah, you're right. You don't need to know how. Yeah, that's really cool. It makes it more accessible for people. Explain the model, because I think people are like, yeah, it just sounds friggin' awesome. I want to try it. Explain to people how the model works for you.
Yeah, so it's a pretty standard subscription model. So basically, we do $49 a year or $7 a month, and we're just you come into the platform and you get guided through. Okay, are you sensitive to sound? What are you looking for? Do you want more results or do you want enjoyable music? Because we can actually change that depending on it. And what we're really trying to do is just give someone, a low cost, immediate solution that can get someone in. And our biggest thing is numbers, like you were saying. So we believe that we can serve, we believe that we can be the same thing as Headspace or Calm or whatever. So we're not going for signing up 10 people or 1 million people. We're after the 100 million mark. And that's why one of the reasons why we try to keep our prices affordable.
Yeah. And so what about the trial period that people can expect?
Yeah. So right now we're three days free. So basically no credit card sign up or anything like that. You just pop in, put your email in, and then you get guided through. So you get 3 days free, and then you can pick a plan to upgrade to.
Yeah. I think within that 3 days, you're going to get a pretty good sense of what you can expect and what the experience is, whether you're, again, trying to focus, trying to relax, or trying to sleep, you're gonna get it pretty quickly. When you think about, tell us a little bit about some of the testimonials and customer experience. Within the three categories,
sure.
Which seems to be the most popular, most effective for people?
Yeah, so I would say focus for sure. So focus, about 70% of people use. They come in, they're like, this is great, and they just use this consistently. And we have some really cool testimonials from that, which I'm happy to share. I've gotten people saying that this is great, this is an indispensable tool, to people saying that this has literally saved their life. And everyone goes through dark times, and that they've used tools like this to be able to keep it together and move through. And we get a lot of testimonials from people that literally are crying when they're writing the testimonial, and they'll say things. We get videos. We actually have an internal channel of raving fans that we share things, and it really is one of the reasons why we all get up in the morning to be able to share and improve the product. So that's something that's really deep, and we're passionate about. We also get a lot on the other ones too. So a lot of people with ADHD that have tried, Adderall or Ritalin or all the other ones, people that, maybe don't want to or want to take less of it, but still want to be effective. There are some people that have tried us, and they're like, I didn't know I could focus this well, where they thought they knew what peak performance was or peak focus was, and this really showed them that. So that's kind of really cool to see. And then we have other ones where people just haven't slept, PTSD, or they feel like they haven't slept the same since they were, 25 years old. And for the first time in 10 years, they were able to sleep through the night. So we get a lot of different ones to different kinds of emotional impact, I guess. I'm just thinking of some of them, and I'm trying to be private with some of the ones that I've shared. But it's really exciting to hear that we're making impact.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't slept, if you haven't had a full night's sleep in a week or a month, let alone a year or two, just popping this thing on and listening to, beach sleep or thunder sleep or rain sleep and just slipping in. I mean, that's everything. Sleep is a meta skill. It's a meta habit. If you can get that right, you're going to be okay. You're going to be able to recover and recuperate. Well, this is a question that I like to ask some folks, just because there's always critics. What are some of the objections that people have to this, who have either tried it and they're like, no, this is a bunch of hooey, or for the uninitiated who have not tried it? What do the people that poo-poo it, what do they try to say?
I love that you brought this up, because I am a critic, and you are too, and it's fun to go through this, and because we definitely get critics too. We definitely get the people that are, there's no way sound can do this. This is impossible. There's people that I did a Reddit AMA like 3 years ago, and people were really thinking they felt like I was taking their drugs away from them, right? Like Adderall and Ritalin, and we were trying to take that away.
Interesting.
So that's not necessarily critic, but it was like maybe a misinterpretation of our vision, because we're trying to be a +1 product. So it's something that is an assistance to wherever you are in life. So if you have a thing that works for you, then keep doing that, +1. But sometimes people don't have perfect solutions, and they have like an 80% and they go through life, and they're trying to always experiment with things. I think that's how I originally coined myself a biohacker. I was trying all the different things, because it's just, I didn't have what I really want that I saw other people have. And I believe that this is another option for people to, use and create. There's other critics too that will try us, and they've already decided before they go into it. So they're like, there's no way this is going to work. And then they listen to it for 10 minutes and they're like, nope, don't feel anything. And then they write an angry email to us. And I think it's because it's really interesting. The technology is subtle. So this isn't brainwashing or any of the other kinds of dystopian stuff. This is a small effect, like that wind on your back, but it's in your brain. So because it's not hypnosis, or I shouldn't say that, subliminal messaging. Sorry, that's the word I was looking for. Hypnosis is a whole nother kind of category of stuff. But because it's not subliminal messaging or any of that stuff, if you go in and say, this is not going to affect me, it's not going to work. So whenever I tell people to try it, it's like, hey, put this on, just treat it like background noise, like you would any other song, and just work like you normally would, and the results happen. And they start happening in most people in the first 3 minutes, and fully activated in about 5 minutes or so. It could take you up to 8 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on your sensitivity levels. And for most people that we've been able to test, we see effects across the board. So it's, that's kind of where we're at. And we have a really big mission, and we'll always have critics. But, we try to look at all the other people that, are using us and growing.
Yeah, one thing that I've come across with skeptics is the YouTube skeptics, who have the biggest audiences, sometimes really help the businesses they're being skeptical of, because it's like, this is never going to work. This is BS. No way. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to get really pissed off at Brainfm because this is snake oil. And what it does, it draws really positive attention. And then people are like, oh, maybe I'll go check it out. And then they check it out and they're like, oh, I really like this. This works well. One thing that sort of struck me as I read through the science was that a lot of it is highly technical. And I mean, I guess anytime you're dealing with the brain, you are considering, a really technical consideration set for what goes on. But there's all these references. How long has this idea been around? Like, what is the sort of heritage idea, the sort of earlier explanation for how something like neural oscillations work? How far back does this go?
Yeah, that's great. So I can tell you maybe the inception of Brainfm and this kind of idea. Oscillations in the brain is actually is a very I guess don't quote me on this because I don't have the
Yeah,
scientists
that's all
here,
right.
but
You're right.
it's a very well known phenomenon in the brain. So the same technology is actually being used to treat Alzheimer's right now with different kinds of light oscillations, right? So there are you can do oscillations to actually start recovering tinnitus, right? Like all of this stuff is being used in other applications, and it's being used by science. Oscillations with light have been around a lot longer, but it's an effect that is measurable in the brain. In audio, in the specific way, or the specific way through audio and through modulations in audio, it's actually a pretty relatively new idea. So the inventor of the original founder of Brainfm and the inventor, he originally patented this idea 10 years ago. And what he did is he was very interested in binaural beats and isochronic tones, right? And he actually sold CDs in the past and things like that. And at one time, he was a developer, and he's really interested in making those video games you can control with your mind. So have you ever seen like, and this was a bigger thing like 10 years ago, and it's starting to come back because now we have like commercial grade EEGs that people can buy. So it's really exciting. But he used to have these EEGs and would basically try to normalize them so he could say go left, and the video game would go left, and to do that he back then he would have to wear them all day. And he started realizing that whenever he plays his guitar, it's a consistent EEG reading, and was like, oh, wait a second, and then started using binaural beats and started using himself as as like the test dummy, I guess, right? And started realizing that these aren't as effective, but what if I did this and this and this, and kind of stumbled into this idea. When we originally approached our neuroscientist and brought him on the team, he actually didn't think this was something that could be done through audio. And that was one of the reasons why we were able to snag someone who's graduating like MIT, Harvard, all that, because he was able to show, oh, wait, there's something here. And that's one of the reasons why he's been with us for this long, and why we continue to do science, is because this is kind of like a new phenomenon that we've been able to not only investigate and fund, but we've been able to instead of having 5-year runway from scientific technology breakthrough to consumer, he's at the forefront and opening up the door, and it's just immediately being applied to Brainfm. So it's a really great relationship we have, and how the company is set up to be funded as well.
So is everybody at Brainfm just totally skeptical and like going into it thinking there's no way. Oh my God, it works. Holy cow, I'm in. I want to be involved.
No, not everyone. Some people aren't. They're like, I'm like, hey, this works. They're like, it does. And then they,
Okay.
So I think it's maybe for people like yourself and myself that are maybe sensitive to things. So we're very aware of stuff, or maybe it's just because skeptical is there's so many people that say things, you want to check it for yourself.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do is really have that high level of scientific rigor. There's a lot of other companies that suggest they can do the same things that we can, but what they do is they say, hey, this is our science. We ask everyone that is a power user how effective they feel.
Right.
And then it's a study, and technically, is it science? Yes. But is it the same level of science of renting an fMRI for $200,000? No, it's just not, Yeah. Is it the same thing as we do video game testing? So we do like SART testing, and we can measure performance over time. So that's another way we do stuff. But like the way we're doing it is we're trying to have the highest degree of fidelity, so that anyone else that's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Great. We have everyone, and because that's the main mission, to help people. And we know that there's people on different, levels of skepticism. So we cover something higher than some of the stuff on those scientific papers, I needed to like ask, our neuroscientists to teach us, because like it's just such a high level of degree, and that's one of the reasons why our papers are like that, because it's bleeding edge neuroscience.
Here's to that note, neural oscillations. Populations of neurons can synchronize their activity, perhaps to communicate across distant brain regions or better perform computations. Neural oscillations that correspond to a critical middle ground, linking single neuron activity. Like, whoa, all right, we're getting, but it's there. It's cited. It's followed up. It's strong. All this is obviously on the website for folks to go check out for themselves. This is maybe it is left field, but this is kind of how I do things anyway. Sure. I tend to think about like, hertz. I tend to think about vibration. I tend to think about like, what Tesla said about the nature of reality being vibration. Have you delved or thought anything about like the connection between vibration and wavelengths and stuff that Tesla did?
So myself personally, I haven't dove into that myself, but we definitely have scientists as well as musicians that have. There's, I think, two levels of thinking. So I'm not sure if you're familiar. There's a whole kind of thinking that the frequency that we use in music, or the hertz that we use, it should be a different hertz, right? And there's other kind of things. Where we're at with the whole thing is we're in. So I think this is very abstract, we're in a system, right? And there's a lot of really interesting things to observe in the system. Sometimes it's really challenging to observe something in a system if you're in the system yourself. Sometimes you have to be on a higher plane. But for where we're concerned is at right now, and I'm only speaking for myself, not necessarily for other neuroscientists. But I'm really interested in, okay, we're here. There's theories, and we can like kind of play with theories and stuff. But for right now, what actually has effects that are shown and can be seen? And not to say that other ones don't exist, but for people that want to invest time, energy in a platform that is able to show and prove things, that's kind of the stance. Is like all the stuff that we do has data and science, and we're always tinkering and playing with things and testing stuff, but we don't deliver it to people unless it actually has been shown to work. And there's just so much, and I mentioned this at the beginning, there's just so much stuff that looks really good and it makes sense, and then you go test it, and sometimes it doesn't work, or sometimes it's something, there's noise and data that you then start taking apart, and then you're like, oh, well, this is actually what's happening. So super abstract, sorry for that, but
no, that's okay. I asked a weird question.
That's kind of how our approach is like, everything that we found in the data, we package and we put out, and then until we find that data, we do that. That's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, what works now is
that's the abridged version.
Yeah, does this work now for lots of people? Yep, sure does. Talk about the best ways to use this, because I think especially for my audience who are always looking for cool new stuff to try, this is such 3 days free to actually test this thing out, to test this platform out and try the different categories. Do you call them channels? What's the terminology?
We call them mental states,
okay.
But channels is appropriate as well. Okay. The original idea of Brainfm was a Brainfm tuner,
sure,
kind of like an FM tuner. Yeah. So.
What's best practices? I assume that headphones are better than just playing it on your computer. What are some other things that you should do to get the best results?
Yeah, so headphones for sure. You should have those because of some of the fidelity of sound and the different kinds of patterns that we're doing. What's interesting is that if you're playing it off speakers, if it bounces off things before it enters your ear, it can kind of have a degradation on the effects. If you have a really high fidelity like Sonos and it's surround sound, you can give that a shot. But we've done all of our experiments with headphones on. So that's one note. I always tell people to make sure they drink water. So if you are dehydrated, it actually will, in some cases, maybe even give you a headache. Because so that's like one of the quick tips I always say is like when you're actually doing this, just make sure you're not dehydrated or you're drinking water. It's something small, but every now and again, especially for people in this community who's doing all these things. Another thing is just application. So what I always say is find out what works for you and experiment. It's really important because everyone is different. But some quick starting places is I always tell people to try focus first. It's really easy, and it's something that you can instantly feel. Where relax and sleep, you can still feel those, but it takes about 20 minutes to actually feel relaxed, or you have to have a full night's of sleep. What I always do, some of my morning habit, for example, is waking up and I always have an iced coffee, right? No matter where I am, and I journal. So what I'll be doing is I put Brainfm on, I pour an iced coffee, and I sit down, and I always ask myself 3 questions: is what do I need to do today? What's going to make today successful? And then I do a structured brain dump, and then I kind of categorize my day. And what's happening is while I'm doing that, I'm kind of planning my day, and I kind of I drop into this flow state that everyone's trying to get. And what I always like to do is really use it as a tool and respect the tool. So again, use it any way you want, but I personally do like focus sprints. So I will say, hey, I'm going to work for 60 minutes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to accomplish A and B. And then I'll write it down. I put everything on do not disturb. And then any thought that comes up and percolates in my mind, I flip that piece of paper over and I write down that thought. And then I go back into what I have to do to work. And that's really cool because you're literally trying to sprint to the end. And then, you take a break and you say, okay, what did I accomplish? Okay, cool. Let's dive back in. But it really depends because there's other days where I'll just throw it on for 3 hours and power through work. So it's getting to know you and how you respond. And then for people who are, biohackers who are interested in that, who combo with nootropics, it goes really well with nootropics as well. It's almost like a guide. So, the most basic one is like caffeine and L-theanine, right? Or like you can throw, you can educate me on this, but there's a lot of really interesting things that go along with that. I would start making sure that Brainfm is effective first and get that and feel comfortable. And then you could stack on other things on top of it.
Yeah, I can attest to that. And I take a lot of different things, but for me, I've been working on getting into that flow state, that focused flow state faster in the morning. I've got 2 kids who are doing virtual school, and for me, I want to get a bulk of my hard work done as early as possible. So what I've been doing is, and I'm not saying everybody should do this, but I've been microdosing psilocybin, and then using focus to like power through the things that I can control, the things that are at the top of my to-do list. I use a 6-item to-do list technique every single day. So there's 6 things that I want to focus on, and it works. I mean, it works like crazy. Like when at the very beginning of our conversation where you said, an hour went by and I was like, whoa, holy cow. That's real. When you realize that an hour has gone by and you just got through 3 of the things on your 6 things for the day, it's a really amazing feeling. It really buoys you up. It's a really awesome feeling. One thing that sort of struck me, I don't know if you've connected or reached out to Steven Kotler.
I know Steven.
Yeah. Is he using this yet?
So
he should be.
don't know if I can publicly say
he
that.
Should
no,
be.
I know people over there, so I know Steven as well as Rianne.
Yeah.
And they're very aware of what we're doing. We're working on things behind the scenes of some stuff, but it's actually Steven who's really popularized all flow, and And it's really cool because he lives everything that he represents in all of his books, which is like the coolest thing ever. And he's just so he's probably the most skeptical person I've ever met. So to hear him even say, "Yep, I know Brainfm, it's a real deal."
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, ski, write books, and take care of dogs. Like that's the thing.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I've had Rian on the podcast and
oh cool, yeah,
yeah. Met up with Steven at an event here in Seattle. Awesome. Well, I think everybody should try it. Before I flat out, what do you have to lose? You know, if you think that you're performing at a high level already, and you're listening to like NPR in the background or music soundtracks, or, you know, your kids running amok in the living room, you should really try this because the proof is in the pudding. And once you realize that it really does help you zero in, it really does sort of, here's the way I think of it. We all have a bunch of tabs open, right? If you don't have 4 or 5 tabs open, bless you. If, you know, I think most of us have, you know, 15 or 20 at any given time. You know, what this might actually do is help you not check your email tabs and not check your friggin' crypto updates, but like actually focus on the thing that is going to make the biggest difference in your life, that's going to help you perform at a higher level. So I think everybody should try this. You know, what do you have to lose? Before I ask the final question, which is a fill in the blank question, where can people, pretty obvious, but where can people go to learn more? Where can they follow you personally? What socials? Give us your vitals.
Yeah, so you can just go to brain.fm. So it's brain.French Malaysia for that. Or you can go in the App Store and search for Brainfm. We're in apps there as well. And then, you know, if you want to follow me, I'm not really on socials a lot. You know, if you want to follow me, I'd suggest following the company. All my minutes go into building this. And that's the reason why I get up every day in the morning. So yeah, give it a try. You can always reach out to me at dan@brain.fm if you want to share your personal experience or feedback. More than welcome to. I read all my emails. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome. So this is the final question, and it, you know, we didn't really talk much about your journey as an entrepreneur. I'm sure that there's a whole lot more that you didn't share, lots of good stories and so forth. But this last question is a fill in the blank question, and this can be regarding anything, you know, any of your experience, wisdom that you have to share, and it's a fill in the blank, and you can elaborate either as much or as little as you wish, but please fill in the blank. Everyone would benefit from knowing.
I would probably answer that and say everyone would benefit from knowing that you truly can do anything. You know, I think a lot of parents, they tell their kids, hey, you can do anything when you want. And I think as we get older, it's really easy to stop believing in that, or be limited. And sometimes it's other people put limits on us, and it's sometimes we put our limits on ourselves. And I truly believe that everyone has unlimited potential. And you know, even if people have forgot that, they can regain it, because that is what being human is being able to realize that. And yeah.
Beautiful. Well said. Dan, thank you so much for joining me today on the Optimal Performance Podcast.
My pleasure. This is great.
And scene.
Cool. That was fun.
Yeah, that was great.